Whoa, yeah, son. This feels like a decent fish. Feel like a decent fish. Oh man, what a frenzy, what a frenzy. That's, come on man, come on Striper Blitz, Smith Mountain Lake. Oh yeah, this fish. There you go, bucktail jig. About 7 pounds, eight maybe. Come loose. Whew. Man, that is what you call a jigged fish there. I might have to take the my tool here. Get this cat loose. Old line sides. I'm gonna let him go. Yeah, we got plenty. There we go. Get on back here. Get big, fall. Thing about a striped bass is they keep a whole lot better in the lake than they do in your freezer. How you doing? My name is Garrett, and we're putting together a video on my lake, Smith Mountain Lake, Virginia. It's one of the prettiest lakes in the country, and I've fished a lot of them, and it also has one of the best fish populations. We're going to take you through the seasons, show you lures, places to fish, and when to fish them. We have striped bass, smallmouth bass, and largemouth bass on this video. And I think when you see this video, you'll really enjoy it. I got a couple here that we caught this morning. And some of the fish that are on this video were caught when we caught these, but we let the smaller ones go, and we kept a couple here that I'm gonna take home. These are a little better than average Smith Mountain Lake striped bass. They're about 12, 13 pound fish, but this is a typical striped bass fishing on this lake. And you come on down, I think you'll enjoy this place and the people that live around here, especially the natives. Thank you. We're going to talk a little bit about striper fishing. I do a lot of guiding on this lake for the striped bass, and I'm going to try to give you a little insight on what to do and when they do it and why they do it. And some of the baits that I catch fish on, and some of the baits you can catch fish on that I don't necessarily fish with. The striped bass are not native to these landlocked lakes, and they're stocked by the state. And in this lake, they're stocked as 1-inch fingerlings, so many a year, but they grow real well because of the bait fish population that we have. Now, if you know anything about a striper bass, or a rockfish as some people call them, they're ocean fish. And most of your ocean fish have the same characteristics in that they feed on bait fish. Well, and this is true with the landlocked striped bass. We've got alewives and gizzard shad in this lake, and this is mainly, I'd say 98% of the time, what the striped bass eat on. That's not to say that they won't eat anything that you put in front of them, but the point I'm trying to make is the fact that the bait fish are where they're at, and that's what they eat. If a bluegill was close to one, he would eat that. If a bass is close to one, he would eat that. But fortunately for us bass fishermen, that the bass tend to stay in cover, and the striped bass stay out in schools out in the deeper water. Now, the stripers in this lake go through a cycle every year similar to a black bass, but their spawning patterns seem to be highly unusual for the mere fact that instead of going upstream to spawn, they try to spawn downstream on this lake. Now, the spawning area on this lake, which is this particular month right now, the month of May, generally takes place down here next to the dam. Now, nobody's figured out exactly why they do this on this lake. Most likely it's because of the generators on the dam, the current that they push up the lake, because they can fluctuate this lake a foot a day without any trouble. But in this area down here around the dam, right now in the month of May, is a good area to catch your striped bass. Now, these fish go through the spawning period, and they lay their eggs, fertilize them, but they do not hatch. They need so many miles of running water for the eggs to tumble, for the eggs to hatch. So consequently, the hatch is worthless, but they go through it anyway. All right, after the spawn, the fish in large schools will start moving back up the lake, depending on where they run into their first concentrations of bait fish is where they stay. But generally on this lake, they come up and they'll part and go up the Blackwater River arm or up the Roanoke River arm, and by fall, by midsummer they may be halfway, and by fall they can be, or the month of December say, they can be all the way up in the upper ends of the main river arms. And they do a lot of feeding up there late in the fall and in the winter. And then in the spring, they go through the same cycle again. You catch them up in that area and then back down, and as the spawn comes, about the first part of last week in April, first part of May, you'll be catching them regular up in some of these areas, and I'm going to show you, and then all of a sudden, you know, they disappear, and they all make this run, except for the immature fish now. There's stripers. You can catch stripers anywhere, but the larger ones seem to go down in this area around the dam. in this the month of May, for example. On this particular map here of Smith Mountain, it's published by ADC. They marked areas, and they've got to mark stripers on here. Like right here's one I've got a big block around at the S-curve. Up here's another one that is the mouth of Betty's and Becky's Creek, and they've got little red dots and they've got written stripers and stripers on it. And your first impression when you get this map is you think, well, how would these people know that there's any stripers there? Well, these areas, even though it don't seem possible that they could get that lucky and put something like that on the map, are areas that there are stripers. Over here in Blackwater, here's another one. Now, these aren't the only ones, but for somebody coming on this lake that's never fished this lake before, if you just concentrate on those areas at the right time of year, you can generally get real close to striped bass. Now, the methods for catching these fish vary anywhere from plastic baits to live bait. I myself personally use artificial bait 95% of the time, but they're taken readily on live shad, alewives, live perch, or anything else that you get in the presence of them. The key is finding the fish and presenting your bait to them. They're no problem to catch. But the main thing that I could tell you that may help you on the striped bass is to just concentrate on the one factor that they eat minnows most of the time. And so whatever you're fishing, if you want to catch a striped bass, think minnow. And as far as the artificial baits go, the main trick to catching these striped bass on artificial baits is to fish your baits slow. These fish are big and they're not fast like a largemouth or a smallmouth bass. You know, a largemouth or smallmouth, if he wants a bait, you can't wind it too fast. But with a striped bass, the slower the better. If you just make your baits creep along the surface, if you're using surface baits, or when you're using jigs, just a slow, steady retrieve seems to work better for these things. Striped bass do a lot of night feeding. If you want to spend the time out on this lake at night, any time of year, winter or summer, they can be taken at night. And sometimes some of your better fish are taken like this. I don't do that much night fishing, but they can be taken then. Early morning and late evening is predominantly the best time for catching the striped bass. All right, here's some of the baits that I catch fish on. Right here, for example, is a deep diving Rebel plug. The trick with using this lure is casting it right up on the bank, and at night is generally when I use it, and fish a slow, steady retrieve. Just a slow, steady retrieve. Nothing erratic and nothing fast. And just keep it moving in the water. It's a good lure at night. This is a bomber stick bait that works good at night. It's also, this is a surface lure. Right here is a little Mac. It works real well. Now your color variation, this little Mac works good in stained water. I like it in stained water, but you can just use common sense. And when you're fishing clear water, you want your bait to look as much like the natural bait as you can, or whatever they're eating on. Right here is a popper, a large popper, when they're on the surface at night, and sometimes you catch them schooling during the day. You can use this bait and do does a good job. This broken back redfin and also the straight back redfin are all excellent baits tonight. This is a deep running one here. But these two right here, you just throw them out and make it, just barely make a wake in front of its nose and just creep across the surface, almost like a snake swimming in the water, and fish it as slow as you can fish it. And when one hits it, you'll know that. It's no doubt in your mind. In fact, that's about the most exciting time that you can striper fish, is when a 20-pound fish comes up and takes the surface lure. It's pretty exciting. I don't care how many of them you've had to happen to. Now, your bucktail jigs, which I use mostly during the day, I use range anywhere from 1/8 of an ounce to 1/2 of an ounce, depending on the situation or how the fish are laying. Generally, a 1/4 ounce jig and a 3/8 ounce jig will do the job. As far as colors, white is always right, and I like some with a little dash of yellow tint in them. We have local people that tie these jigs and put yellow feathers in them, and I don't know anybody that makes them commercially. There's a lot of local people that makes a real good jig around this lake. If you want a jig fish, you can do it. But there again, when we're talking, for example, this bait right here in clear water has got a gray feather in it, and when it's in the water and it's wet, this thing has the shape of a teardrop. And I think if you look at the underside of a shad, can imagine looking up at it in the water, it's shaped exactly like one of these jigs when it's wet in the water. Now, it's the way it seems to me. But when you fish these things, you fish them the same way. You cast them out and swim it with a slow, steady retrieve. You can go too fast, but you can't go too slow unless you hang up on the bottom. That's all you got to remember. And concentrate on daring that fish to hit that lure. It's just like fishing a wet fly for a trout, except that the trout's bigger and the fly's bigger. And as far as you control is a good method to catch these fish. You control these deep running rebels and catch fish. If you can't cast or may have something wrong with you physically and you can't cast, works good. If you want to troll a 1/2 ounce or a 5/8 ounce jig, trolled 30 yards behind the boat to slowest possible engine speed will get you strikes a lot of times. Windy conditions are good for trolling. But that's about the only time. I personally don't do a lot of trolling, but I have caught them trolling. Now, as far as live bait fishing, what you have to do to get into that, you have to, first of all, you have to get you a throw net to catch the shad. Using the large net, using the shad net, you catch your shad, and then you have to have a special tank to keep the shad alive if you're going to be fishing any length of time. And these guys have got these insulated tanks that they put in their boats, and they've got stuff that they put in there with these shad, and the shad has to be round so that they don't get stopped in a corner, because they don't get any oxygen. And anyway, it's quite a job to get them. But the advantages of live bait are, if you have confidence in doing it that way, that's okay. And if you fish a big enough shad, say you've got 12-inch gizzard shad, you eliminate catching a lot of smaller fish. You might not catch as many fish, but you eliminate anything under 10, 12 pounds. They can't eat a minnow that big. You know, unless you put a little minnow on, you can't catch a little fish. Whereas my argument, you know, when you're arguing back and forth over that is that this will catch any size striper, where the big shed will only catch the big ones, you know. And personally, I like to catch a lot of fish if I can. But finding the shed is a bit of a problem. What you have to do is get back in these creeks. Most of these major creeks, coming back over here to the map, if you go back in these creeks, like Indian Creek here and Stony Creek, back here in, around Campers Paradise, back in that creek, and throw the net enough, you'll generally come up with some shad. If you, in fact, like to shed fish. But as far as the striper, getting back to the main thing, the striper fishing, we have a 2-fish limit on this lake, and I think it's a pretty fair limit. When you're catching 10-pound fish, 2 apiece is plenty to take home. And being as how it's a put and take thing, they're stocked and taken out, they don't reproduce, you're not really hurting anything when you take those 2 fish. It's not like taking a largemouth bass out of here that's full of eggs and you're possibly killing 1,000 little ones. You're not killing anything but the fish that you take. That's why I think the striper program is really a good program. And it's a lot of good eating too. And as long as you don't abuse it, it's there to use it. Get it going. See them jump, breaking? Yes, yes, yes. We're getting some. Watch these, there he is. Here we go. All right. Breaking fish, Smith Mountain Lake. Straight to bad. Come on here, son. Get that old jig. I like that. I like that. Yeah. I don't think he's too big a fish, but he's fun to catch. He's small. He's just a baby. Come here, son. Yeah. He's just a mere child. We'll let him grow up, be a little bigger fillet. Come on, loose, sir. Loose. There you go. Get on back there to mama. Eat plenty of ham and biscuits. What we're going to talk about today is a little spawning patterns. Pre-spawning patterns, spawning patterns, and post-spawning patterns. Of course, spawning patterns obviously mean spring. Early in the spring on this lake, the fish are generally, with the bait fish, are holding deep in deeper water. And as the water temperature comes up, the fish move up with them and start heading for the spawning areas. The first places early, generally in March, that you can start catching nice fish are generally on rocky areas. They tend to warm up faster. For example, right here in this particular bend in the river, on the Roanoke River arm at R34, it's a real deep bend in the river, and it's real rocky. And on occasion, you pull up there and find a school of nice fish. Not just one or two, but a school of nice fish move in that area. And they're actually what they're doing, they're staging for the spawn. Now, they do this a lot of places on the lake. This is just one of them that I've caught fish doing that before. Now, some of the baits that we use for this pre-spawn, I've got them lined up right over here. Pre-spawn, I like to use some of these baits I've lined up right here. Jig and pig, this is a Stanley jig. I use a number 11 pork on my baits. Uncle Josh porks, brown or black, either one's a real good combination. I've caught them on both and one with the other. Brown jig, black pork, or black jig, brown pork, or the same. Don't seem to make much difference to the fish if you find the fish. Spinner baits, chartreuse. I like this willow leaf. Chartreuse in the stained water, clear in the white color in the clear water. This man's countdown's about a 10-foot run. I use a chartreuse there again in the stained water, and shade color in the clearer water. And here's some other baits. This Rapala's a real good bait. I've got two of them set up here. One of them's a perch color, and one of them is a shade color. I've actually done better with the shade color because that's mostly what the fish eat, such as this Bagley foil is another good one that I've done well. Speed Shed by Bomber is an awful good early bait. It's one of the first baits they come up on. Anything that imitates a shed on a lake like this that has the forage fish is mainly shad, is going to be productive. It's just a matter of presenting it to the fish right. Now, some of the areas you throw these things, or besides this bend that I've already showed you, any steep bank, if you get in the main river and come down the river, into the steep bank, then we're talking early March, or any area back in creeks that is rocky. If you find an area that is rocky, such as there's one right in here behind this, right here on this, there's a road bed right here on this point, and there's some rock right around there, and it's, you know, a lot of times you'll pull in the area and spot some rocks like it, and it'll hold one nice fish, one 3 or 4 pound fish. But if you can look for this type of thing early, and the fish will stage on these deeper holes, and it's almost like a flower in the spring. When they blossom, they go back in these pockets and stuff to spawn. And once they start moving, they get on stumps, they get on trees, anything in shallow water that they can spawn. The males, they'll go in first, and then they come back out and get the females and bring them back in. For example, right here in Stony Creek, there's a lot of real nice stumps in this one area right here. Well, these fish may stage right out here on the point early, say in March on this lake, and then they will move in and lay their eggs, and the males will stay there, guarding the nest, and then the females will generally, slowly they'll return back to the haunts that they had originally. But you can catch them going and coming. All of these fingers on this lake have spawning fish in them. There isn't any that don't have. It's just a matter of getting out and looking for them. You have to take your boat and go back in them and look for them. Use your sunglasses, and you can spot the fish, but you have to keep moving. There's fish that you find on beds when you're bed fishing, which gets us back to the spawn. When they're on the spawn, there's some fish will bite and some fish won't bite. I don't recommend taking fish off the bed, but they can be caught. Normally I catch and release them. I practice catch and release, so I don't really relish it. Some of the baits that you can take fish off the bed, or when they're in that posture, for example, on this lake is right here's a few of them. Smoked grub is real good. Gets it is a favorite of mine, and this salt crawl is another good one. These baits, you have to bear in mind that these baits, some of them, they're not hitting these baits to eat them. They're hitting them because they feel endangered by them. And this lizard is an excellent bait for spawning fish. They can't stand it. Also, like this rebel plug twitched over the fry after the eggs have hatched. The male bass is real aggressive. He'll hit that pretty keen. There's a number of other lures that work well on spawning fish also. Floating worm works real good. Anything that you can aggravate the fish with will draw a strike on some fish, but the biggest problem that people make is to keep fooling with the fish that won't hit. Generally, I've always found that if a fish is aggressive enough to hit, he'll hit pretty quick. Other than that, you're better off to forget, even if it's a 10-pounder or 10-pound fish laying there, and there are some in this lake, to go on and look and try to find one that will hit. Now, after the spawn, these fish they're weak the females are weak from the spawn. They'll start feeding up, but what they generally seem to do is they get out in deeper water and feed mostly on minnows until they get their strength back. And then once they do that, they'll start locating out closer to the pre-spawn areas, like they started on to begin with, really. And then they start schooling up, and you'll find them then out in areas where you have brush piles. There's a lot of brush piles on this lake, and I've discussed before, and it's just a matter of common sense. If you were a bass fisherman on this lake and want to put a brush pile in, you need to think, well, where would I put a brush pile in? Well, on this lake, if you go where you think you may put a brush pile in, it's a good chance there's one already there. You just use your electronics and get out there and scout around, and you can find a cover. There's plenty of it. Another thing we have on this lake is we're starting to get right many grass beds. Well, now the grass beds are generally all the way down here on the lower end of the lake. Some of the Cool Creek Little Bull Run, Big Bull Run areas. Now this grass that we have is a real pretty grass, but it comes up early and it doesn't reach the surface of the lake in most places on the lake. But it does hold fish. And a lot of times, especially with your post-spawn pattern, you can fish topwater baits, a buzz bait, bait such as this Zara spook is good. This jitterbug, not necessarily in black. I use a black at night a lot. Or this rattle trap is a real good bait. And also a buzz bait. I don't have one stuck up here, but a buzz bait, I'm sure most of you know what that is, will work real good on your post-spawn pattern. And occasionally, after they've all probably in end of May and 1st of June, the females have ganged back up, and you can find real good concentrations of nice fish, 3 and 4 pound fish, and that's in the whole lake. It's not just in one small area that this happens. This lake has an abundance of nice fish in it. You got to spot that nest. Can't find that nest. Oh, over here it is. Oh, here it is. Here, we're getting closer now. Oh, this one here is aggressive. Yeah, he finally hit it. Hit that little old gets it. Oh, he's a nice little male bass. Come on now, son. Come on. Yeah. Yeah, I'm gonna put you back. I'm gonna put you back. There you go. That's about a 2 pound male bass. See how dark his tail is? He's got a little place here where he's been battling those perch. But he hit a gets it. Like pretty fish. I'm gonna put him right back on the nest. This is what you should do anytime you take a fish off the nest. Because he's guarding the fry. And the fry, let's see if he goes back over there. There's a nice one right there on that little grass patch right there. There's a nest right there. Yeah, there she is. I got her. She's good one. Oh, and she's pretty. Oh. Oh, son, now easy, girl. Oh, baby. Oh, son. This is what it's all about right here. Look at here. Look at here. Maybe she's gonna breach. Watch her, she's getting ready. Come on, David. I don't care if you get off there. I got you under my skin. Smith Mountain Bass Bed Fishing. Oh, man. Come here, honey. Oh. There it is. That's what it's all about. About 6 pounds of fine female bass. Oh, me. What a day. Whew. Caught on a gets it with a Shaw Grisby hook and a 16th ounce sinker. Aggravated her for about 10 casts before she finally hit. But she definitely hit. She might weigh a little more than 6. All right, girl, you going back over there with your buddy. Y'all make them babies for us. Make plenty of them. For all the bass fishermen and the bass fishermen's kids. Look there, she go right over there. Thank you. Oh, I love that. Techniques that I use on this lake, I use on a lot of different lakes. Mostly I call them just common sense techniques. The bass are affected, like a lot of fish are affected by light, so they seek shade. So what I generally do on a lake, whether it's, this is for the benefit of the people who've never fished this lake or other lakes, is when I get on the lake, I look for the visible cover, whatever cover is visible, and the most predominant of which on this lake is boat docks. Now there's 10,000 boat docks on this lake, and at one time or another they all have a bass on them. Now that doesn't mean that you go out here and catch them on them every time, but it's one of the best patterns in the summer or post-spawn or in the fall too on this lake. For example, in the spring fishing boat docks, because of the spawning characteristics, a lot of times they seem to be toward the back of the docks. As the summer progresses, they tend to lean toward the deeper docks. Or the docks, there's some docks that we have this grass that grows down on the bottom in some of these areas. Some of these docks this time of year are pretty good. But what you have to do, you have to set your mind, get out here and look at the lake and decide on what bait you're going to use. Mainly I use them just from experience. And approach these docks one at a time and try to fish as many as you can and try to figure out how they want that bait and what part of the dock they want that bait on and exactly where this dock is located in reference to the rest of the lake. For example, if you're fishing right here in Betty's and Becky's Creek, for example, if you go in Betty's Creek, which is full of boat docks, and you start at the mouth of this creek, and you have to get all the way back to the rear of this creek, and you catch a 2-pound bass out from under a boat dock. And you turn around, you fish all the way out through there, and you might skip a few docks and pick the best ones or whatnot, but you keep fishing docks. And you don't get another strike, and you've caught one back in the back. Then when you go down here to this creek, which is Becky's Creek, then the first thing I would do is I would go to the back and fish that area first before I concentrate on any other thing. Now that may be a good spring pattern. As the summer comes on, a lot of these fish pull out and move down here towards deep water. I'm just using these two creeks as an example. This lake from right here to up here is full of bass. Now some of the lures that I use, and a lot of other people too, matter of fact, are your grub and gets it type lures. This particular smoked grub here, rigged with a 1/0 weedless jig head, 1/8 of an ounce. When you throw it up and let it fall down beside a dock, it looks like assume it looks like a crippled minnow to the bass. I don't really know what it looks like to them, but I'm assuming that. And also another good lure is this gets it. Now in the clear water, I like a clear bait a lot, or a smoke. something that's in the shed color. Another real producer on this lake is a 4-inch worm, ringworm, like this hopalong worm that a local boy sells around. They're awful good. Another thing about this lake, when it first was filling up, everybody used a larger worm, mostly a 6-inch worm. And then as the fish got smaller, the worm size tended to drop down to the 4-inch size. And now that it's come back up, I've gone back to a 6-inch worm instead of using a lot of these 4 inches. But just for boat dock purposes, a 4-inch worm is a real good lure on this lake anytime. Let me show you a couple spots that I fish in the summer and in the winter. Our patterns do a lot of flip-flopping, spring, fall, winter, summer. A lot of time the same techniques will work in the dead of summer that work in the dead of winter, or in the fall that work in the spring. Just kind of a reversal. But right here's some places that I've caught them in summer and winter. Right here at Hales Ford Bridge on the upper side, the northern side, upstream from the dam, there's some riprap, and out off this riprap is some standing timber. It's a real good place to yo-yo a Hopkins and catch fish in the winter. Right up here in Hales Creek off of this point, there's some standing timber. Another good place you can get into a school of good bass. Coming down the lake in Betty's Creek, right here I've got some standing timber marked on a road bed. This is another good spot. I've caught fish here. And below here, and this is Becky's Creek, I've got a bridge and a road bed, an old bridge that I've caught fish on. Now this is winter and summer. On down the lake, down here in Merriman's Run, I've got a place marked here that's got some standing timber, and we caught a real nice string of bass one time that averaged about 4 pounds apiece. Some of the best bass fishing I've ever done on the lake one winter. And right out here at the mouth of Walton's Creek is a hump in about 15 foot of water, the top of it. And you're subject to pull up there and catch a lot of fish sometimes, nice fish. Now again, I gotta emphasize, this is a winter and summer. pattern. And it's sparse to the extent that you have to, when you fish this type of stuff, where winter and summer it's tough fishing. You may fish several and may not get a bite and then pull up on one and catch a boatload. Over here across the lake, over here next to Foxport Marina, where we've been working, right out off of the point here, across from the, right straight across from the marina, there's a long point, and it's got standing timber and about 40 foot of water. This is another good place to drop your Hopkins. But bear in mind now, there are a lot more in each area of these type of things. This is just to give you an idea of where to start. You use your electronics and you can find all kind of things in this lake. A lot of timber. Now, if you find a place like in a creek bend, like right up in here, let's say, close to the channel, like on this map, it shows a road bed right here and some brush. These are the type of things you want to look for. What I'm showing you just some that I know of that I can catch fish on or have caught fish on in the summer and winter pattern. What we're going to try to do here, there's some bass. This is a late summer, early fall pattern, and the bass have schooled up on the lake, and a lot of them have, and they're chasing minnows in certain areas. And what we're going to try to do is catch a few on top water, which is a real good bait this time of year. The water temperature is around 68 degrees, and we're starting kind of late this morning. It's around 11 o'clock noon, and the sun's bright, and the water's clear, and a lot of people wouldn't think that you could catch anything this particular time of day, but especially in this clear water, but sometimes you can. And we're using a pop-R bait, and it's been a favorite of mine since I first started using it. And the technique that I'm using is called kind of like walking the dog, if you ever heard of that, but I call this strolling the pup. The idea is to draw these fish up out of deeper water to strike this thing. There has been a few around here. We're just gonna have to fish a little bit, see if we can get a little action. The idea is to get that thing out of there and get it out there and keep it moving and make that fish make a decision on whether to go for it or let it go. You gotta fake them a little bit. And a lot of times, they're like me, they make the wrong decision. Because I believe some of these fish are down around 10 foot. And if you get them excited, a lot of times they will come and get it. This is what I'm looking for. Smallmouth, looks like. Yeah, there he goes. Ooh, son. This is what it's all about, right here. This is the king of fish. The king of fish, yeah. Oh, me. Ain't it a beautiful day, man? Can you believe this? Let's see if I can slip him in here. Come on, young boy. Ooh, yeah. That's a nice little smallmouth. How about that, buddy? Ain't that special? This is smallmouth, close to close to 3 pounds, about 2.5, 2 3/4. And he is pretty. I mean, he is pretty. Looks like a copperhead snake on the back. And he hits and fights like one too. So, smallmouth, about 3 if Bill Dance was doing it. What we're doing here is trying to find some suspended fish that are out chasing, out underneath the alewiser, and with this top water bait. Sometimes you can catch some right here. What they've done, they move out from under the boat docks and off of brush piles and suspend out in different places, off of points, and back in coves. It really depends on the bait fish population as to where you find the most of them. This popper that I'm fishing, kind of fast. I'm trying to make a lot of noise with it. There he is. Oh yeah. This is where it's at, right here. It's all in the technique. Oh, yeah, this is a pretty fish here. Yeah, I love this. Talk to me, dog. Yeah, This is Smith Mountain Lake bass. I'd say about 3 pounds. He just come up and engulfed that thing. I mean, engulfed it. I know the rebel people are proud to make a lure like this. I sure am proud to fish it. Yeah, I might have to find the pliers here for this operation. If I can find them. Yeah, here we are. Oh, I'm gonna get so fat I can't hardly bend over. Gotta go on a diet. This is okay here. Yeah, buddy, you all right. Now that is a fat bass. I mean, he is so fat, you wouldn't believe the weight in this fish. Depending on who catches it, how big they are, you know how that is. Thank you, buddy. Some of the lures that we're going to be trying on these fish that I've caught fish just in the last couple of weeks on this lake, or one is the baby torpedo right here. It comes in various colors. I like a silver one. This one I'm just using it for demonstrational purposes. And it's a kind of a brown pattern, but it'll work right now. Right here is a chugger lure made by Pose Baits, and I've caught some nice fish on it just in recent days. And this is one of my favorites, is a Rebel Popper that's catching fish right now. Here's another one, a baby Zara spook, a puppy they call it. And a couple of diving lures that's catching them right now is this bagless foil shad, and this shad wrap, a number 7, is doing real well on. When you can't catch one on one of the top water baits and you know the fish are there, if you run the deeper baits through them, sometimes you can get a strike like that. what you have to do to get these fish to come up and strike, it seems like, is make a racket, a lot of fuss. You fish the baits fast and throw a little water. It seems to, as you'll see the way I'm fishing it, it seems to make a difference on getting these fish to come up. This water that we're fishing is clear, and they're holding, probably 10, maybe 15 foot deep, and if you raise a fuss, it seems like it'll draw them up out of that deep water, and they'll come rushing up and get it. The best one that the Pop-R is the best one that I've found lately to do it, but I've caught them on just about every lure that we've mentioned until the last couple of days. I've concentrated more just on the Pop-R, but I think I could have caught them on other lures too. I just didn't do it. Now the area that we're fishing, right here around Foxport Marina, has got a lot of bass, but it's not the only area in the lake that's got a lot of bass. The lake is so big that I can't possibly keep up with the whole thing, and just a small area right in here is what I've been concentrating on the last few days, just in this area. The marina's right here, and then I can just branch out just a few miles and catch plenty of fish, seems like. But if you look at the lake, I would say right up here is the Hale Ford Bridge area. From there all the way to the dam, and from over here probably up here around Marker at the upriver as far as Marker B30 down to the dam. This pattern is working right now. Now above those areas you have a different water temperature, and the fish are taking a different bait. They can be caught on a jig and pig, worms, spinnerbaits. But just in the lower end in the clear water, we're having a lot of schooling bass. We've already talked about fall patterns in this area. I would like to now show you two areas that the same pattern will work on. This area right over here is at the point of the two rivers coming together, the Roanoke and the Blackwater River. Bernard's Landing, some big condominiums. You can't miss it if you see them. It's the biggest structure on the lake down there. It's right here on this point. But right here, I've marked several points that have schooling fish on them right now. This one right here is R1. It's one of the first marker poles up the lake from the dam, and this one over here is B1, or right behind B2. Right here is B2, and it's right on the point. But these fish are schooling out off of these points. Right here is the landing itself. There's a couple of islands right here, and some of the main points these fish are out on. Now, if you get out off of the point early in the morning especially, you can find these fish chasing bait fish. Right here's another one on the other side of the lake. And up here is an island, and right on the deep side of this island, there's some fish. And then over here are two more places. Now, you've got to understand that this isn't to say that this point isn't good, or this flat isn't good, or over here isn't good. These are places I know of in the fall that are good. Now coming on up the lake, These areas all through here are similar. But as you come on up the lake and get up in the Hales Ford Bridge area, if you put your boat in up around Hales Ford Bridge, you have another bunch of points that there's suspended fish on right now. This one right here has a roe bed, and this one right here has a brush pile. Now you'll find that a lot of these points and things have something on it. They may have a grass bed down in the water. Our grass doesn't grow to the surface here, and they might have a brush pile on it. Some of them do, some of them don't. But these all have fish on it right now in the fall or early fall pattern. In Hales Creek, back here towards Campus Paradise Marina, there's a brush pile right in this area, right off of this point. You have to get out in about 10 foot of water to find it, but there's some schooling fish right there. And coming out, there's a real predominant point right there that's subject to have schooling fish on it. And right at the mouth, there's a sign right there that has a road bed that comes under it and normally has schooling fish on it. Across on the other side, there's some riprap right under the bridge, and right off the corner of that riprap, there's some schooling fish. And also, I might note that this bridge here sometimes holds fish on the structure itself. Right below it, there's another point that has fish on it. Almost every point in these areas right now has some sort of schooling fish on it. They might not be 3-pounders, they may be 12 inchers, you know, but you have to fish, just keep moving around and find them. Like I say, I've just marked 3 areas here that I know that fish can be caught right now. And that's not to say that there's a whole lot more that I don't know. By no means do I know all of this thing at one given time, because I can't fish for so much at one time, and this is an awful big lake. But if you concentrate in these areas, you can catch fish without any trouble most of the time. I neglected to mention about the bait fish in this lake. We've got 2 kind of bait fish that are predominant. We've got your shad, gizzard shad, and we've got alewives. The alewives hadn't been introduced in this lake very long, but they really a great bait for all species that are in here. It's really helped the fish in it. They tend to stay deeper in the lake, the alewives do, and as the gizzard shad, and they don't get as big, so the smaller species, such as your bass and crappie and things of that nature, can feed on them more readily. But in the fall, the back ends of these creeks, such as Gills Creek right here, for example, and back in these areas, the bait fish will get really thick. I mean, literally millions of the thing. And the bass tend to school up around them sometime. You might not find them in this creek, but you might find them over here in Indian Creek, depending on what time of the fall that you're in these creeks looking for these fish. But this is just a remote thing. Another thing we have on this lake in the fall that you can look for is schooling bass. Just about probably end of September, 1st of October. There are areas around this lake that you can find schooling bass. You'll see fish come up on the surface chasing baits, and sometimes it'll be a whole gang of them. I mean, as many as 50 bass in one bunch coming up after. after bait, and they'll be anywhere from 6 inches to 6 pounds. You find all sizes of them together sometimes. Now these fish as a rule are hard to catch, but they can be caught, and using sometimes top water baits, any of your minnow baits, small minnow baits such as your grub, small shiny lures, anything of that nature will catch them sometime. But you have to be on the lake a whole lot, really, to find this type of thing, or just recognize it when you happen to run across it, which most people will. As the lake cools down and the fishing pressure and the other boat pressure eases, these fish get less reluctant to come up on different stuff. Some of the boat docks that you couldn't catch fish on in the summer, you can now catch fish on. And the blowdowns seem to have more fish on them. Another early fall pattern that works real good right now is blowdowns. Most of your blowdowns are located in the upper arms of the rivers and creeks. We're going to fish some that's in the back of Gills Creek in this area right here. We're going to change from this pattern in this area with top water baits and suspended fish and go up into Gills Creek and try to catch some fish in blowdowns. Now the way I fish blowdowns, until I establish areas that there are some good ones that has got fish on them, I get in an area where there's a lot of them and try to fish as many of them as many different ways as I can. I'll fish them with spinner baits, worms, crankbaits, jig and pig. Jig and pig is my favorite because I like to do a lot of flipping and pitching. And we should be able to get a few fish back up in the back ends of the creeks. The areas up in the back of the creeks and the rivers have lower water temperature due to runoff and stuff of that nature, and they also have some water color. So you can work your fish a little closer. The fish will be just a couple of foot deep, and a quiet presentation with a jig and pig will often get you a strike. Now, as far as which blowdowns to fish, again, I got to emphasize that you don't know until you get out there and fish them. What I try to do with any pattern that I'm working with, I will fish as many as I can in, say, a 2-hour period, and as many different ways as I can, assuming that the fish are on every one of them. And then at the end of that period, if I've in fact caught any or got any strikes, then I can judge which kind I'm gonna fish after that. For example, if the blowdowns are on a rocky bank and I catch a fish, I'm gonna try to fish blowdowns that are on rocks. If the blowdowns are on points and I catch a fish, I'm gonna try to fish the ones that fish as many of the ones that are around points that I can. But really, this is hard to establish till I fish them, and then I may not, if I don't catch it, then I'm gonna change the pattern anyway. But we're gonna try them, and just in this area here above this pattern, because I want to emphasize that there can be several patterns going on the same lake, especially one the size of Smith Mountain, at any given day. Well, some good looking cover up through here. We're in the upper part of Gills Creek. Fishing blowdowns. Blowdowns, cut downs, rot downs, whatever you want to call them. And there's seems to be a pretty good bite on this particular little section. If I can get straightened out here where I can catch another one. There's one right there. Here we go. Yeah, come on. Come on. Yeah, that's a good one. That's a flipping fish. Smith Mountain, about 3 pounds. Healthy. There's so pretty in here. It's a good one there. Got him, nailed him right through the top of the lip there. Right through the bone. Couldn't have got it no better. If I sent it to him, he'd come off, but he ain't going to today. That's a pretty fish. Get on back there, son. Get on back over that bush. He's right down in the thick of that stuff. There's one. Down in that bush. Come on here, Phil. Come on. Come on now. Act like you got some sense here. Yeah. That's just like the last one. Just like the last one. Well, I like to hide off this one. Seems to be several in here about the same size. Pretty much the same size. Got it right through the side there. This whole bank might have more. That's another chunky one there. Good fish. Get on back there, boy. Let me get another one here. Get over here this next one. I believe there's several in here. Ooh. Right back in here. See if we can get another out of here. I know there's more in here. They run in packs whenever, a lot of times on this lake. When you find one a size in there, it's a good chance there's several more there if you're lucky. That's 2 we've taken. Right here, both of them 3 pound fish. Looking for old George now, might be one in here. Got a whole lot of weight to him. Might hit my old Stanley jig. I sure am glad Mr. Stanley put such a good hook in this jig. You can haul these fish out of this heavy cover with not too much difficulty. When you get them hung up, you just dig them out. Whatever it takes. Come on now. I know you're there. I'll be one. All of these. Yeah, there's one. Got it done running plumb up on the boat, Luke. Look here. One plumb up under the daggone boat. Well, this ain't the same size as the rest of them, but he's pretty good. Look at this. He's pretty good. But he ain't the same size as his other one, I'll tell you that. I'm back in that sun. A little sluggish. He picked that thing up off that log and was on the boat, and I'm sitting there asleep. In the fall, late fall especially, just are feeding real good. The water temperature's dropping down, and when the water temperature gets down about 45 degrees or thereabouts, these fish start going deeper. They'll get on rock ledges and stuff. There's several in this creek and on creek bends and things of that nature. And they can be taken with a jig and pig real nice, or sometimes a Hopkins spoon is good. Yo-yo and a Hopkins spoon. And on into winter, as the water temperature gets down, the fish get really sluggish, and they drop down on the ledges and standing timber that we have in the lake. Sometimes as deep as, I've caught them as deep as 30 and 35 foot yo-yo and a Hopkins. I don't really prefer this technique because it hurts a lot of the fish, and then it's in the dead of winter anyway, but you can catch a lot of fish like that if you find the right schools of fish. Um, on a sunny day in the winter on this lake, in January or February, you have a 50-degree day and the sun comes out and you get the urge to come down here and go fishing. A jig and pig fished in rocky ledges and on rocky points will sometimes get you a real nice fish. I've caught 7-pound fish in the dead of winter, just a few bites, but have caught some really nice fish doing it. What I'm using is a Hopkins Shorty 75 with a little bucktail treble hook on the back of it. I prefer this over the regular because it seems like the bass like this one better. But in the summer, I use this exclusively. In the winter, I can use one that's plain. But the way we use this thing, what we're doing, we're sitting out off of a point here in about 75 foot of water over top of a tree that comes up to 20 foot. When they flooded the lake, they cut all the timber. Supposedly, the tops of the trees that were left standing are below 35 foot from the surface. But in some of these areas, you can find trees that come up to the surface as close as 10 foot. And that didn't necessarily mean that they're the ones that have fish on them, but in this winter and summer pattern. But it's a good ones to try. What you have to do with this thing, you just drop it right down in there, straight down below you, in the tree, all the way to the bottom. Now we're right on the edge of 40 foot. 40 foot's what I'm looking for to find the fish. And when you reach the bottom, all you have to do is pick it up swiftly and then follow it down. You pick it up quickly and then let it flutter down, but maintain contact with your line. And even though you may be down 40 foot, when the fish hits it, you can feel the strike. It may be faint, but you can feel it right through your rod, just as easy as if you come up a little bit, drop it back down to the bottom. You get slack in your line and then pull it up and let it flutter. Stripers can be taken this way also, no problem. That's generally what I fish for in the winter. I stay away from the bass because it tends to hurt the bass more than it does the stripers when you catch them that deep. But it's a real good technique when you find the fish in these trees. It's not something that you do every day, but it's something that you need to know how to do if you're going to be successful year-round on this lake. Bottom line, folks, is what we've tried to do is to help you catch more fish. I know how it is when I go to a strange lake or even a familiar lake, and any little bit of information that I can get, I find it invaluable. And I know if you fish some of the areas that we've pointed out and use some of these techniques at the right time of year, you won't have any trouble catching fish. I say that with a limber fault, but I think you'll find that you'll do very well. Did none of us learn this stuff on our own? We all learn from somebody else. So experience is the best teacher. For example, on this lake, I would have to credit my old bass club, the Roanoke Valley Bassmasters, and the members in it for the input of information that they give me, each one of them that I ever fish with, and anybody else that I ever fish with. See, this is the key to learning. And I hope they don't get mad at me for showing you some of the spots, but I think you'll understand, and I think you'll enjoy this lake. It's a moody lake sometimes, but there's always some fish to be caught. Hello, buddy. Come on in the boat here. Yeah, look. Come on in the boat. Squirrel swimming. Whoop, whoop. See, bud.